Welcome. Enter this space of remembrance. I'm not here to shape your thoughts, but to invite reflection. I'm not here to replace one belief system with another. I'm here to ask you what you inherited and whether it still serves you today. Because some of what we call normal was never meant to be permanent. It was survival. And survival has a way of overstaying its welcome. Welcome to the Children of Negus, the Diaspora Remembers podcast. When we talk about survival, we often celebrate it, and rightly so. Survival kept us alive. Survival carried us through violence, displacement, and loss. But survival was always a response to danger. It was never meant to become identity. And yet, over time, survival became culture. It became habit. It became expectation. And eventually, it became invisible. We stopped asking why we live the way we live and start calling it just how it is. But survival is not the same as wholeness. When chains were removed from bodies, they were not removed from minds. No ceremony marked that moment. No collective healing followed. There was no space to grieve what was lost. No room to process what was endured. No permission to ask what came next. So the body was freed, but the nervous system stayed on guard. And what was passed down was not just resilience. It was fear dressed as wisdom, silence dressed as strength, endurance mistaken for peace. The greatest inheritance passed down was not land or wealth. It was belief. Beliefs about safety, beliefs about worth, beliefs about what we could expect from the world and from ourselves. We learned who we were through the system eyes that never saw us fully human. And when that becomes the mirror, distortion feels normal. Faith should have been a refuge, a place of rest, a place of restoration. Instead, for many, it became a place of control. Scripture was used selectively, not to free the spirit, but to quiet resistance. Suffering was sanctified. Obedience was rewarded. Questions were discouraged. But faith was never meant to change the mind. Faith was meant to liberate. Anything that tells you God created you to be less, to accept injustice as destiny, or to silence your own discernment, that isn't God speaking. Unhealed grief does not disappear, it adapts. It shows up in how we communicate. It shows up in how we love. It shows up in how we protect ourselves from one another. It shows up in generational exhaustion, in mistrust passed down like cautionary advice, in anger we can't always explain. What we refuse to heal, we unknowingly pass down through generations. And grief, carried long enough, begins to feel like tradition. But tradition isn't truth, especially when it was born in trauma. Reconditioning does not mean erasing who we are. It means removing what was installed to keep us small. It means separating survival habits from ancestral wisdom. It means asking difficult, honest questions. Who taught me this? Why do I believe this? Who benefits if I never unlearn it? Because freedom does not begin with answers. Freedom begins when the mind is allowed to ask better questions. Not the ones we were taught to ask, not the safe ones, not the ones that stay within approved boundaries, but the ones that lead us back to ourselves. Across the diaspora, we share many things, different accents, different flags, different histories written by others. But we also share something deeper, a shared inheritance of memory, resilience, and an unbroken connection to our origin. We were shaped by systems that taught us what to think, while quietly discouraging us from ever asking why. We were trained to accept conclusions without context, rules without reason, and narratives without question. But today, something is shifting. Across the diaspora, people are no longer satisfied with surface answers. They are reading between the lines, tracing bloodlines, reclaiming culture, revisiting faith, re-examining history. And it's not rebellion, it's remembrance. You don't miss what you were never part of. You remember what belongs to you. That pull you feel toward truth, that discomfort when the story doesn't add up, that quiet urge to dig deeper. It is not confusion. That is consciousness waking up. Waking is not loud. It does not always announce itself. It doesn't come with applause or certainty. Often it comes quietly, in private questions, in moments of discomfort, in the realization that something you were taught no longer fits. And that can feel unsettling, but it is necessary because the future cannot be healed with inherited thinking. Ask yourself this: what did I normalize that my ancestors would have questioned? What did I inherit that I never chose? What did I survive that I no longer need to carry? Because survival was never the end goal. Survival was the bridge. And bridges are meant to be crossed, not lived on. This channel exists to speak truth freely, to hold space for identity, unity, and legacy, to remember together what was fragmented by design. If this conversation stirred something in you and you're ready to walk deeper, I invite you into Children of Negus, because awakening begins here, and healing happens together.